It is my privilege that we can continue our study about the unity in Christ, and we have today the subtitle Unity in Worship. Now, we have understood that God created us to be diverse. Just in one point, we must be united, and that is in identity. And as we understand and know that we are all creatures except God, so we all must fulfill the law. That is, we must be able to take from God in order to give. So worship is taking in order to give. So we worship God because He made us to be kings of the earth, that is, administrators. And as an administrator, as you are a channel, you must have something to share. God made humans to be the only link to the Creator for this earth. So He hanged the circle of this earth, all the reactions, everything that should happen on earth, He made dependent on the action of man. That's why He created man. But in order to do that action, man need a means by which he should work. And that means was God. And He had to take from Him in order to give. From Him the animal would take, then the animal would give it to the plants would take it from the animals and give it then to the earth, and the earth would give its fruits. And that fruit, the human would return in the big circle to God. So this is how God made all things to work, and this is the special thing to work for us. So worship for a human was just because he had a job. And we must understand worship is not that we go and give God something, how our selfish natures understand that, why we expect something back from God. No. Worship is taking because God made us to give. So we were made for service, but we have no means for service. You see, I have understood this great principle, and it brings me a lot of peace. You can do nothing without means, can we? And so, as I'm an employee of God, who must take care for the means that I have to use in order to do my job? So it's God. So I never will go ever to ask anyone for means, because that's not my job. My job is only to take the means that are already provided, and there is only one that can provide the means. It's God. And as I'm working in a self-supporting ministry, I said, Lord, as long as there are means, I use them. No means, no job. So God made me not responsible to take care for the means or to search for means. No. He just made me responsible to use the means that are already there. If there are natural means, like food, you go into nature and take them to use them, but you don't make them. And here is the great confusion in worship as well as in our daily life. We try to make the means, but when we make the means, then we must be gods. But if you and I are creatures, we don't care to make the means. We just cooperate with God in taking them and giving them for the purpose He has created. That brings a great relaxation. There is no need for worship for a person that is not employed by God. Because worship is not something for itself. Worship is just a way to get to the means in order to do the job. And this we don't understand, because we go and worship God because oh, we praise you and all this, like we give something to him. We can never give anything to God. What we bring to God as administrator is the fruit that what I gave brought out through all the steps it went through. And now there is the fruit, and that fruit I return to God, but that I didn't make. That is so important to understand the circle. In a circle, you only can take what you never produce, and you only can give also what you didn't produce. You just might have changed it, you must have worked with it, but it's just the means you have used, and now something else comes out of that. So we are responsible to give an account for what we gave and where we gave it, because it's God's means. And so at the end, God asks us to see the fruit. And that is what we give an account to Him. That's why the fruit comes back. So as God is the beginning of every circle in the universe, human is the beginning of the earth circle. So the human is bound to God, the great circle. So everything goes and comes out, and then when it comes back to the human, as he's the beginning of the circle for the earth, he must return that to the great circle, which is God. This is how things were made to work, and this is the law, and nothing can change. So no one prays to God if he prays for himself. So no one is really a worshiper of God if he does the things for Him. We are made by God for the purpose. He is the means, He has all the means we need to fulfill the purpose. And we just worship Him because we need the means to use in order to fulfill our duty. This is short and clear worship. And I tell people, you don't need to pray if you're not an employee of God, because then you pray for nothing. Only employees of God pray. That's why Jesus started with the prayer that says, Our Father in heaven, which means if I call my God my Father, then that's my employment. I am His child. I have a duty to do, as Jesus says, my Father works, I works also. Because if the Father is a diligent worker, all His children will be diligent workers. And so it is. But if you go to worship God for yourself, you do it for nothing. It won't avail anything. So this is shortly the conclusion of worship. Now, we didn't finish the idea of forgiveness last time, and I believe it's so important to understand what means forgiveness. Now, it is also a worship. We will see it at the end. So, the usual understanding of forgiveness is because I believe I'm God. Here are those who did us wrong or did me wrong, and so we forgive them. And how do we think when we forgive? You have harmed me, I forgive you graciously. So forgiveness is something that you do up from above to the other. So here you sit on the throne, the people around you did you wrong, they sinned against you, and now you are so gracious to forgive them. And people think this is the right way to forgive. But if this is the right way to forgive, then that's why it doesn't work today. Because there are certain things that you cannot forgive. There are certain things that go beyond that what you think is forgivable. And so you're stuck. You're in a prison because you cannot forgive that which is too high a sin against you. You can forgive little sins against you. You can forgive little deeds against you. But there are certain deeds you can never do it because you think they cannot pay for it. And so it is. That's why we must look to the true way of forgiveness. And this true way of forgiveness is also determined by who I am. If I'm a creature of God and others did me wrong, how does forgiveness look like? What do I tell the one that I forgive? In order to give this clear answer, we must, like always, look to the law. So as we know, God created this universe. He, as a creator, He's also the legislator, because He had to do the laws by which He can govern His universe. Without law, He cannot govern nothing. And since everything He created cannot exist by Himself, He did two kinds of laws. The first is the fundamental law. Everything, with no exception, must take in order to give. And there are the secondary laws, which there is diversity. Not everyone is dependent at the same time. Not everyone is dependent on the same temperature. Not everyone is dependent on the same speed, same space, same pressure, same light, or whatever it is. So the secondary laws are showing that there is diversity. Yes, the one is susceptible with this temperature. We need 37 degrees or 96.4 Fahrenheit. But another animal doesn't have that need of that temperature. They live by other temperatures, minus temperatures, and they're still alive. So there is diversity. In the secondary laws, there is full diversity, but in the fundamental law, there is all unity. So if the Creator is the legislator, then by that definition, everyone can only sin or break the law against the one who gave the law. So can you ever break a law against someone who didn't give any laws? Of course not. So this is God, and He created the matter, He created the plants, the animals, and us as humans. We are creatures. We are all dependent on God without any difference, no matter what we are. Now, to break the law against a creature is by law not possible. Why not? Because the creature didn't make the law. And how can you break a law against someone who didn't do it, who did create it? A creature is on the same level. It doesn't matter what kind of a creature you are on the same level. And being on the same level, being equal, how can you have claims towards others if you are on the same level? And if you possess nothing, you have no property. So if nothing that you are is yours, then no one can sin against you. And you can never give anything from yourself, because people say, oh, I gave him this and now he doesn't give me that back. No, you can never give anything from yourself, so no one owes you anything if you give him something. If I take this book and I give it to someone and he takes it and it's not the book from me, what should I expect back? Let's say he takes the book and throws it away. Against whom did he sin? Against me? No. Against the owner of the book. And I'm never the owner of the book, even though I might have written it. Because everything in this universe is owned by the Creator. Everything in this universe can only be under the Creator's laws. So, against each other, we cannot sin. Against each other, we cannot do us wrong. This is something that we must really understand. My mother and I had last year a disagreement. We got into a fight, and after we immediately, when I saw that we fighting, I said, Mother, how can we do? We are adult people. We should never fight each other. And so we prayed, we wept, and said, I'm sorry, confessed what we did wrong. But after about 10 days, my mom was still not happy. And so I went into a room and said, Mom, I see that you're still under depression. You don't smile like you always do. I said, because I confessed to you my mistake. I went out to God in nature and I confessed to him because I sinned only against him. And so I arranged everything with him. It's fine with me, so I'm free. And then my mom said, but you sinned also against me. And I said, Mom, this is why you are sad. Because you think what I did is not forgivable. Because you think I did it against you. But no, Mom. When I sin against you, when I do harm unto you by the way I treat you, I only sin against the owner of you, and that can only be God. That's why I came to God. I arranged all things with God. I confessed to you as well my mistake, but now it's gone. And I showed her from the Bible, from the law, that no one can sin against her. And no one can sin against the creature. No one can break the law against the creature. So obviously then, why should the creature then be able to forgive? Now let's go a step further. God has provided institutions with authority. We have countries or states. We have churches. And we have the marriage institution. He made these institutions to be managers of his laws. So, who gave the state the authority? God. Who gave the church the authority to forgive? Now, when we read the Bible, when Jesus says, the sins you forgive are forgiven, it looks like the church has authority to forgive. No, as an administration authority, it can punish or forgive by order. It can give consequences, even though they didn't give the law. Now, of course, did the countries, the churches, and the people that are married took it over and made their own laws out of it? Yes, they did. They misused their authority. And now they give laws that are not under God. So they are managers, they are administrators of God's laws. But if they misuse, if they do it wrongly, then of course they must give an account to him who gave them the authority to punish or forgive by order. Now, individuals without authority cannot distribute punishment or forgiveness because, like I said before, the law does not permit it. Here God gave authority, and if you go against the authority of God, then of course you must give an account to the authority and to God, because both of them are higher than you are. So if we would put this straightly together, we would understand beautifully what it means to forgive. Because we were asked to forgive. And in order to be able to forgive, we must know why must we need to forgive when individuals without authority cannot distribute punishment or forgiveness. Let us look to the human being. What does the law govern in a human being? Dependency or freedom? We know that all things, and including Adam, must take from God the love. Nobody can exist and act without a source of energy. Love is the main need of humanity. It's the first need, not a second need. See, food and all this are secondary needs. They are absolute needs we cannot live without, but that with which everything in our being starts is love. If love is not there, no matter how much you eat, no matter how much you drink, it won't work. But if love is there, and it can only be there in connection to God, then everything you do is fine and correct. So there is one source of dependency, and there is no choice for that source. This is the law. Whatever is under law does not have a choice. I hope we understand that. Choices are only when you give. This is by choice. Humans can give by choice many deeds. All the deeds that we do are not under law. We can work, eat, drink, sleep, talk, smile, run, go, whatever we do, it's not under law, because if we all are dependent on God and do it out of love, none of those deeds can be ever wrong. None. So if Adam and Eve would have stayed together with God, they would have never been able to do any wrong thing. Because out of love, how much wrong can you do? If you stay in that one source, that's the only thing that is under the law. And this is by choice. Freedom is by choice. But now in our confusion, thinking we are gods, we think we have the choice of a source. But when God said to Adam, the day you eat, you'll die, he said, you have no choice. If you eat, you die. There is no choice to have another dependency than God. Than that what God established. That there is no choice for his iPad which kind of dependencies had. It must have that what the creator or the one that did it fixed for it. So deeds are just effects. This is very important to understand. We have to be forgiven. Let's see from God. What do we need to be forgiven? The cause or the effect? Because sin is that we broke the law where there is no choice to break the law. And so what does God want to forgive? What needs to be fixed? Now, evidence the deeds need to be forgiven. But can there be forgiveness of deeds without removing the cause? Would that make sense to forgive deeds without removing the cause? Let's look to that very beautiful parable of Jesus in Matthew 18. I start from verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgave him? Till 7 times? Jesus said unto him, I say unto thee, until 7 times? No, but until 70 times 7. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, and he laid hands on him, and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet, and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay unto thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord, after that he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me. Shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his Lord was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if from your hearts forgive not everyone his brother their trespasses. Now this is an amazing parable, and it's of course infinite in its application, but let's look very plain to the first idea. The effect why you do that is taken away by taking away the debt. But the cause is obviously not taken away. So the man who was forgiven his debt, what was the effect because he was not faithful to his Lord? So he did not take from him, or however we explain it. And now he should go, and when another person has owed him something, that what the other person owed him also entered into his debt from his Lord, because he only gave to the fellow man a thing that he did not give from himself, but from the Lord. And if the Lord forgave him all the debt, then that was also included. But this gentleman obviously doesn't understand that. And this is the greatest misunderstanding in forgiveness today in the religion Christian world. They want the effect to be forgiven. The actions, the visible actions, the eating, the working, those are the wrong things. They want to have forgiveness for that. But Christ makes it very plain. There is no forgiveness without removing the cause. Because he gets it all back. He must pay it all. So this is the clear teaching of Christ. The cause must be removed as the forgiveness takes place. If this is not so, forgiveness would mean you make people to do the wrong even more. Because they don't need to remove the cause, they just can be very doing further on, because the effect is taken care of. All my actions, now, past, present, and future, are forgiven. That's what they teach out there. But this, for every mind that thinketh, makes no sense. Reason forbids us to think by forgiving the effects, that is, the actions, not the consequences, because the consequences are not included in forgiveness. We shouldn't forget that. We just speak about the actions, the actual visible deeds that can be forgiven. They must be forgiven, but only if the cause by this is also removed. But people say, oh no, I can never stop sinning, so God will always forgive the deeds that are obvious. That's why he died on the cross. So my past sins, my present, and the one are already paid off, and they think on the consequences on it. They think if they're paid off, why should then there be any issues further on? I can park the wrong place because my parking tickets are already paid. That is nonsense for everyone that can think. For people who cannot think, I don't argue. But for those who are having a reason, and they can reason by it. Forgiveness without removing the cause would be just multiplying the evil. And this is exactly what is preached, because we have not understood the law. We have not understood what needs to be forgiven, what needs to be taken away. Because if the cause is not forgiven, if the cause is not removed, then your forgiveness is worth nothing. You get into that place where you have to go, where it was here, he was delivered unto the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. And Jesus makes say, so likewise, my heavenly Father shall do, if you don't forgive everyone his mistakes. Now, the second thing is this. We think that forgiveness is given to rescue whom? Most people are encouraged to forgive because you're going to be free. So just forgive him, then it will be well with you. Now, yes, there are consequences when we forgive the right way. There will be well-being. But this is here a place where we must really pay attention. God says here, shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? You see, it's not that you are forgiven because you forgive, but as you forgive. There are people who go out and say, I forgive you. Like I said it at the beginning. I am God and I forgive you. But they do it for themselves, just to relieve their conscience. This is not compassion. This is not love. If we forgive our debtors because for our freedom, for our benefit, is just deception. We must forgive the one that did the wrong because we have compassion. And we only can have this compassion if we take it from God. But for this, the cause in our life must be removed. If I'm a creature, I'm dependent on God, then what I give, all the deeds I give, they come out as being good. So good cause, good effect. Wrong cause, I am God, taking from Lucifer, whatever I do is wrong. And since it is making out of the wrong source, if the cause is evil, the effect will be evil. We can read that in Luke 6:44 and 45. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For of thorns men do not gather figs, nor of bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil, for of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So, what is the evil man and what is the good man? The evil man is the one that has in his heart, I am God. And the good one is the one that has his right identity, I'm a creature of God, I'm a child of God. Now, your identity now determines from whom do you take. And as the one that is evil takes from the devil, he must do all things evil. That's his treasure where he takes from. And if you're a creature, then you are taking from God's treasure, and evidently the effect will be good. So, forgiveness makes sense only if the cause is removed. If we stay with the same identity while we go on doing the wrong things, but we think they're all forgiven because past present, and future sins are all included on the cross, then of course you're going to wake up very deceived. There is no way to forgive anyone except out of love. Not for yourself. You don't forgive anyone his deeds in order that you should get free. You only can forgive if you have been changed in your heart. And then forgiveness looks very simple. That's why the cross is the place that we have not understood. The cross must be applied to the cause. And of course, if it's applied to the cause, the effect is included. But now the devil is a great deceiver of separating things that cannot be separated. He separates the body from the spirit, which cannot be separated. He separates works from faith, which is not separated, because this is faith, this is works. So how can you separate them? They are just united. They are by law united. And here he separates forgiveness like being to take away the effects, but not the cause. So let's look to that thing, what we call the cross. The removal of the false identity is needed in order to be saved. So Jesus is here his earthly life. He comes from his father half and he comes from his mother half. So he enters to be the first Adam. We think I discussed this in one of the past lectures. And he came and he had to crucify on the cross our selfish nature. That's what he inherited from his mother. And he had, by resurrection, create a total new creature. That's the second Adam. People are some kind confused. They think Jesus was the second Adam by his birth or by his incarnation. No, he was the first Adam. He only became the second Adam through resurrection because he destroyed the first Adam. He destroyed that what out of the first Adam was wrong. He took away the cause. And by removing the cause, of course, he removed also the effects. And he created a new creature. And now he serves as a high priest and comes back as a king. And a king means a judge. So forgiveness is only possible if righteousness is fulfilled. Now, how do we get our righteousness? Do we get our righteousness by the paying of the debt, or how can I say, by punishment? Because people think punishment brings righteousness. Yes, punishment brings righteousness for those who are eventually are destroyed. It's righteous to destroy the evil one. But can anyone live in heaven because Jesus was punished in the way he took away the punishment? Or did Jesus fulfill the law? And that righteousness is that what brings us into forgiveness and being reconciled with God. So let's look this to me. I was born with a sinful nature. That's a handicap. It's not sin. Sin is not sinful nature, and sin are two different things, because sin is an action, but it's an action in the heart. It's faith. And the outward deeds are just the effect of in whom do I trust. So I could not trust God except when I was challenged on the 7th June 2003 to listen to God, to trust Him. And on that day I changed my life. I gave my life to God and He gave His life to me. So on that day, something of my sinful nature was broken, was destroyed, and I received instead my real identity of being a child of God. And because this happened in my heart, I got forgiveness for all my past. Yes, because the cause, of course, partially only was removed, God could give me forgiveness. But forgiveness is not by punishment. Forgiveness is because there is a righteous life that God has instead of my life. And this gives me forgiveness. But it's not enough. Like people think, oh, now you are on the cross, you have exchanged your life, you got the forgiveness. Oh no, there must be something. That's why the parable is so fantastic. You must be put to the test. Does this principle of love really works in you, or are you still in the gall of bitterness? Are you still under the same idea that you are a God and someone did wrong to you? That's why we are having a life after the cross. And after the cross, I must go a process growing in Christ day by day, crucifying that which still comes out of my sinful nature. There must be forgiveness together with liberation. And this is what we need to understand. This man, let's see, that was his new birth. But when he was put to the test, he proved that his heart was not changed. Forgiveness was worth nothing. Worth nothing. This is why it's so clear in Romans 8 that Jesus came, that the righteousness that is needed by the law must be fulfilled in me as well. Now, I get the power to fulfill this righteousness through Christ and have the power to kill the wrong identity, so that one day I might be free as Jesus was free. Here, at the end of his high priestly work in my life, he will say, I finished. And this was a cooperation with me so that it can be done. So I need forgiveness every day, but forgiveness only works if every day, by going to the cross, something that is wrong in my nature is broken and taken off. Only this is how forgiveness works. Because at the end, the compassion of God towards us must come out to anyone who did wrong around us. But did they do wrong to us or not to us? And then, of course, we will be translated in a new creature, and we will then inherit that what the second Adam did. And we will inherit his nature, and we will be then totally restored unto God for eternity. Never, ever think that it's a choice from where we take. That was never under choice. That Adam made it, that Lucifer put that under a choice, shows that it's not under a choice. Under a choice is only what we do out of it. So, what is then true forgiveness? True forgiveness, if I'm a creature, I know you have harmed God while doing wrong to me. Yes, because if the debtor owes me something, I gave it only from God. So who does he own that what I gave to him? Or in the parable, yes, the wicked servant gave his fellow servant a sum of money. But from where did he give them? He gave them from God. So how much does the other owe him to give it to him back? Only because of God he must give it to him back, because God gave him that thing into his hand, so he has to get it back to fulfill that what God gave him to fulfill. So if someone steals that what we have given, he doesn't steal our duty, he doesn't steal our things, but he steals God's. So he does not harm us or our property or our possession, but he harms his. I will pray for you that God may have mercy, because he also is gracious to me. So we as are our debtors only to God. And if others do wrong unto us, they don't do it unto us personally. They do it on us, but it's done unto God. But we can have this understanding of forgiveness only if we are creatures. If the law is clear for us. That's why Jesus says very plain, what, 7 times? No, 70 times 7. That is, how often do I need to forgive? What's his words? Does he really mean 70 times 7? Shall we count it? No, he just said a number. He said a parable of an equation which means infinite. So, forgiveness, what it really is. When God forgives us on the cross, he says, Horst, you didn't do me any sin anymore because I have the righteous life of Christ and I gave it to you. And your life is Christ's life. So he says to me, you did no harm to me anymore because Christ never did harm to his Father. You don't owe me anything anymore because I have a righteous life by which I can compensate all your mistakes. But that's not enough. I must also learn from my Father to forgive because that debt that God took away from me has included all the debt of what others did to me. So when I was abused, then I can say to the abuser, you didn't do any harm to me because I have exchanged my life and you must take care and arrange that with God, not with me. And I can tell the owner, the one that did me wrong, you don't owe me anything anymore. Yes, there is still an ownership to God. So he can go to God to have the same forgiveness, to have the same restoration. If not, he stays and he will pay. But I am not there anymore to take him at his neck and say, pay me my debt. No. Because I understand he didn't do it to me. There was one man on earth who had never needed to forgive, and that was Jesus Christ. He was living in the truth because he knew he did not never need to forgive him anything because no one could do him any damage since he had no property. He was a creature. How could you do damage to a creature? Never took anything personally because he was just a representative of his Father. So he knew everything was done unto him, was done unto the Father. He knew, I am a son of my Father. That's identity. And he had it right. Everything that is done unto me is done unto my Father. So who shall take care for forgiveness? That's why Jesus doesn't pray on the cross, help me to forgive them. No, he says, Father, it's your business to forgive them. It's not my business. Because they don't do me harm. They do you harm. But since I know you're a loving God, and that love of you is in my soul, I ask you, have mercy because they don't know what they do. This is the right attitude of a created being, of the one that has the right identity. There is no need that anyone should bow down before you and you graciously forgive. No. Forgiveness is simple. You never did me harm because it's not my life. We only are asked to forgive because we think we are gods. When once that is sorted out, when we once are only creatures like Christ and the wrong identity is totally mortified, then we fulfill the words of Jesus asked by Peter. How often shall I forgive? We won't take, when we are going to be in prison, when we are going to be under persecution, anything personal. Because we know they don't do it to us. So we are not under any problem to forgive anyone anything, but we are so full of compassion that we say, Father, if possible, forgive them, because they are just blind, they don't know what they do. There's everything selfish is eliminated by the cross, is taken away. Then forgiveness is past. A Christian has learned that no one can do him harm. And he has learned that everyone who did harm to him did harm to God. And if I'm a really creature, if I know the law, then I know everyone can only sin against God, and only God can ultimately forgive. Yes, there are authorities that can forgive, but they all have it only under God. They must also give an account for that. So, it's such a freeing message to understand who you are. Because if you know who you are, then you're free. Then others can do whatever they want, and you still will be not in a gall of bitterness. You will not have heavy weights to bear, because you know everyone that does it to me does it to God. And the life of Jesus will be our life. This is the only way to be restored and to be forgiven. And everyone that does not forgive this way forgives for nothing. It won't count. It doesn't count for the body, because these people, they still are sick because they're still the victims. They still think it was done unto them, even though they forgive like the normal way, the way we think forgiveness means. But if we see forgiveness from the truth, from the law point, we are free. No one is in debt to us. Never was and never will be. This is true worship. This is to not want to take the place of God, that others should come and worship you. Because if you are sitting on the throne and you want others to ask you for forgiveness, you must be God. So there's never a thing that someone needs to come to ask you forgiveness. You forgive because you know they don't do you harm. And so you can be full of compassion like Jesus is. But for this, you must be a worshiper of God. You must know who you are, because only when you know who you are, you worship God. If you think still you're God, if your identity is not changed or in the process of changing and destruction, then everything we do is worth nothing. May God help us to become the humans like Jesus, who understand themselves, who know who they are, and who will not raise up themselves on the throne and having claims that are no right for us to have. This is forgiveness. This is worship. May we do it according. Amen.